All right, welcome back to the Breadcrumbs Project, and this episode is going to be dedicated to the war that is happening in Israel right now. If you pay attention to the media, you're going to get 3 different stories, and 4 or 5, and every media source is going to tell you what they are told to tell you. You can only go to YouTube and smaller channels to get an actual decent analysis of what is happening. My analysis comes from being born into the diplomatic corps. My dad was with the U.S. Embassy, and until I went to school in the United States in my teens, I was living all over the world and exposed to U.S. Embassy propaganda. U.S. Embassy propaganda. So my dad was fed what to think and retold people in country what to think. And it struck me because I had a certain set view of the world, especially the Middle East, that was formed by the conversations my father was having. And that was basically the narrative that the U.S. media pushed out there. And then I got older, and this whole Q movement started to happen. And the important thing about the Q movement is it taught you, it forced you, it challenged you to do your research, to research your opinion, to go to different platforms and see what it is saying, and grow your ideas from there. And so ever since this recent Israeli war started, everything seems off. Everything seems completely off. And one of the biggest things to hit is something that you're not hearing about. Russia is about to make a bunch of money off of the closing of the Straits of Hormuz and what is happening in the Middle East. This is going to be a time to make that money if you are selling oil. So in this conflict between Ukraine, a conflict which Ukraine started by allowing NATO to encroach closer and closer to Russia, what is NATO's purpose? NATO's purpose is strictly to be an antagonist to Russia. And to me, that is misery, man. Misery. And I apologize to Russia as an American citizen, as a taxpayer, as someone who long ago thought Russia was the bad guy, because our media brainwashed us to believe that, in our schools as well. Well, let me apologize to the great Russian people, and to Russia, and to thank President Putin for lifting his country out of misery that the West and Europe left that country in. So during this conflict, which is strictly pushed by Europe upon Russia, the Ukrainian conflict, there are several layers to what's happening there. Ukraine is not what you think it is. You know nothing about the Ukraine, I can tell you that, as a viewer. You don't know anything about its Nazi past. You don't know anything about its Khazarian past. You don't know anything about its Jewish past. You just know that poor Ukraine. You got the flag up on your Facebook profile, and you just stand in solidarity with them because that's what the media told you to do. Well, that's not good. And everything is backfiring, especially on Europe. So this whole war in the Middle East, Europe is left out in the cold. They have nothing to say about it, nothing to do about it, nothing to be able to to make any kind of assumptions or recommendations. They are not at the table. And there's a great saying in politics, that is, if you are not at the table eating, then you're on the menu. And Europe was just put on the menu, because on the top of these YouTube posts from different media companies, okay, Putin declares oil war. Europe, gas stops now. That is pretty dang accurate as to what President Putin told those people that he was speaking to in that meeting up there. Over here. Yeah, over here. What he was thinking. And Europe's treated Russia like absolute dog mess. So Trump tells his people, Putin is telling his people that, look, sanctions are coming against me, coming against us. We can go ahead and cut these Europeans off, and we'll redirect our oil to better, more stable markets that are interested in doing business with us. This is an unexpected fallout from the Middle East war. A completely unexpected fallout. Suddenly, the European Union is irrelevant, because President Putin has already signaled he is not going to do a deal with the European Union. He will do deals with individual European countries that are friendly with them, with Russia. They're not antagonistic. And one of those countries is a country I happen to live in. That's Spain. Spain is sitting so pretty in all of this, if my analysis is correct, and everything indicating it is. One of the most important things that Spain did not do is spend a dime on NATO. Okay, Spain is a member of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, an organization that is strictly made to antagonize, belittle, and keep Russia down. It has no other purpose. None. And Spain, because it's part of Europe, participated early in NATO and has done little to support it going forward. And when Trump made the push for NATO allies to start paying 5% of their GDP to support NATO, Spain said, nope, not doing it. And they did it. They were chastised. And the same with the war in the Middle East. Spain is not supporting Israel, has long been condemning Israel, especially for what's going on in Gaza. And so Spain is very, very friendly to the Middle East and its history. And I believe Spain is very friendly with Russia. And the king of Spain went to China late last year and had a very, very good meetings and agreements with China, whereas the European Union was shown the door. They went to China last year to do a state visit and say how powerful they were and how China needed to respect Europe. Didn't go down like that at all. China did not roll out the red carpet for the European leaders. Quite the opposite, shuttled them in a van, and then when they had the meeting, it was uncomfortable as all get out, and President Xi Jinping put the Europeans in their place. So Spain is sitting well. I believe we have a very wise king here. I'm not a big believer in monarchs, but right now I'm pretty happy with the one we got because he's making all the right moves in this setup. The other thing is the United States is saying one thing, but its behavior is something else. And we're being told that Iran is being bombed mercilessly by Israel and the United States. I've not seen one video of planes attacking anything in Iran. You would hear jets. You would know that they were there and they were dropping ordnance. Nothing. We've seen some explosions, and then we saw this dramatic black smoke explosion thingy happening, and that's not how refineries explode. They don't have giant black smoke pouring out for hours and hours. And then they had another video where all the manhole covers exploded and blew up in Iran, and people were running, oh my God, oh my God. Pure acting. So I don't think Iran is getting bombed, not by the United States, and I don't think it's being attacked by Israel. First of all, it doesn't have any airspace permission to do it. Second of all, Iran has not only the top missiles, but it has top air defense capabilities. Iran can take out our jets. Maybe not our B-2s, but anything that Israel has in its Air Force, Iran has the air defense capabilities to take them out. So I think there's a major operation going on here, and it's part of Q Drop 916 that we were leaving Israel to last, and I think that Israel is being taken off the map. The multiple warhead missiles that are hitting it are doing devastating damage. I know for a fact there's well over 3,000 Israelis that are in hotels, and every night it is getting more and more and more. Those who are able to survive the bombings in the areas, they're going to hotels. Their places, their apartments, their buildings don't exist anymore. That's something that I'm seeing consequence of. The other thing that I'm seeing, that I'm not seeing, is accurate reporting out of Israel. And it is established that there is a 5-year jailable penalty if you are taking recordings of attacks, and the media cannot record attacks or anything that's really happening. The censorship in Israel is brutal. They're not able to let us know what's going on. So that lets us know that they are not winning. And the things that are getting out of Iran, videos, look, there's no internet in Iran right now. There is no internet. Iran don't care. Iran does not need internet to do its thing. So they shut it off right when before this war started. They had some kind of notice. How do I know? Because I'm following a YouTuber from China who was in Iran right before the war started, and she was showing her phone, look, there's no internet. There's nothing, nowhere. Is there any internet? So internet shut down. Anybody that's trying to get video out, they're not getting it through normal means. They're getting it through some kind of an operation. So, yeah, I think this is a long planned event. I think the negotiations that were going on between Iran and the United States for the last many months were an agreement. We're an agreement of a process of how to get America out of the Middle East, the United States of America out of the Middle East, and bring Israel to its knees. Stop it from being a vast military force, and allow the Palestinians to live free. By God, stop with all of the attacks and the killings on the Palestinians. So this is a multi-layered cake. A multi-layered cake indeed. So what you're hearing from the media is Associated Press, like what it says right here. Russia is ready to provide oil and gas to Europe, Putin says. That is not true. The top one, which is the same meeting, says exactly what Putin said. Putin has made Europe aware that he is ready to shut down the spigot to them, because right now he's got more lucrative markets around the world that are looking to contract with Russia, who has stable oil deliveries because the Suez Canal is closed. So all those oil-rich nations cannot ship out of the Suez Canal. Or Suez Straits, not Suez Canal. I mean, Straits of Hormuz. There it is. Okay, in the Straits of Hormuz, yeah, Russia has said they will halt gas supplies to Europe. They don't care, because Russia has been sanctioning their gas and oil, Russia's gas and oil, since the Ukrainian war started. So this is a major operation. And in this meeting, which the AP does not report, but the Times Now of India, Times Now World, an Indian company, lets the whole interview or the whole speech play out. And what Putin is directing the oil companies to do with this revenue is lighten their balance sheets, pay off as much debt with this excess revenue that's coming. So and pay off the debt to Russian banks, okay? Pay off the debt to Russian banks. And that gives Russia more liquid assets for the forthcoming future. The Russian banks will be loaded with money, liquidity, to be able to engage in more business after this Israeli-Iranian war is over. And make no mistake about it, Israel is getting the snot bombed out of it. One of the best news sites to go to right now is Ynet News. It is completely a government-run operation, but they do updates that kind of gives you a glimpse into what's happening. And every couple of hours, every hour, sometimes several times an hour, is talking about sirens going off throughout the day and night in Israel. So the people in Israel are not getting any sleep. I can tell you that the people in Iran are sleeping deeply and soundly. They're eating well, they're sleeping well, they have plenty of gas, and they're paying 3 cents a liter, which is probably about 7 or 8 cents a gallon in Iran. Yep. Yeah. So they're not suffering. Right now, the world, for example, in Louisiana, overnight, gas went up 70 cents. And it's going to go up a whole lot more while this European conflict goes on. The other benefit that I have is I don't own a vehicle. I don't have to really go anywhere. So I'm well organized to hunker this one down, depending on how bad it gets, even if it gets the worst. I live within a fishing community, and we have a gardening process. So I don't know how bad it's going to get, but I think it's a pretty controlled event, and I think it's an anti-Zionist event, and we're getting our bases bombed to rubble in Europe, and we're okay with it. We're not losing troops to these bombings that are happening throughout the Middle East. Yes, there have been 7 soldiers lost, but we still are questionable circumstances to losing those soldiers. But the amount of bombing that is hitting the U.S. bases and turning them into rubble, especially the Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet had a giant base in Dubai, I believe. The whole Fifth Fleet was out of the Middle East. and they evacuated the base, and Iran gave notice that they were going to drop missiles all over that base. President Trump said, go ahead, knock yourself out. So nobody can have access to the bases that are being bombed right now. And that's part of the strategy. So the other thing is that this no website, nobody in Israel is accurately reporting the damage, the injuries, or the loss of life, because the videos that have gotten out are not matching the reports. So this is all being a massive control event. And the final thing I want to focus in on is Israel's movement into Beirut, into southern Lebanon. They've made massive advances, and they've displaced 1 million people from their houses in southern Lebanon. And so Israel's making that movement to capture property in Lebanon, in South Lebanon, which is not a huge country. Syria above it is ginormous, and they'll have something to say about all of this. But Israel is advancing, and they are suffering. Their military is suffering exhaustion. Any military would that's been fighting nonstop for 2 years. So Israel's been fighting a 7-front war for the last 2 to 4 years, depending on how you want to look at it. And that wears your troops down. And remember, Israel does not have a professional army. They have an army of reservists. The bulk of their army comes from people that have real daytime jobs. They can't do those real daytime jobs. They're getting killed and injured. The injuries right now for the Israeli army, amputees, people suffering post-traumatic syndrome, suicide, the numbers are outrageous. We had access to them before the war, now they're gone. And Israel doesn't have the resources to treat these guys. And there was protests going on before the bombing started that Israel does not have the resources to treat their vets, their injured, their vets that are suffering post-traumatic syndrome. I am a vet. I was in the U.S. Army, and I have a good idea of what these guys are going through. Thank God I didn't have to go to war. So these are not full-time soldiers. I was a full-time soldier. Okay? These are part-time people with families, with jobs, and their lives are ruined. They can't go back to their jobs. And the other thing that is obvious is that Israel's economy is tanking. Yes, the stock market is high. They're making up those numbers. People just throwing money to buy stocks that are wealthy Israelis to try to prop up the economy, but the true real economy of Israel is cratering. The tourism industry that was so vital for the people there has been decimated, does not exist, has not existed for the last 2 years. And then just the regular jobs and the functioning, all of these people that are working jobs, they're having to go fight in Gaza and different places. So that is affecting the economy of Israel greatly. And now the constant bombardment that we keep seeing is just taking out the apartments, the people, and the infrastructure of Israel. From what I understand, we have not had any information on Ben Gurion, the airport, and flights. There is a lot of chatter out there saying that Ben Gurion Airport has been, for lack of a better word, put out of action. So that there's some reports that are saying that that the airport runways have been cratered, and so there are no flights that I know of flying into or flying out of Ben Gurion. So the people that are in Israel are pretty much trapped where they are. I have seen more reports that as many people that can get out of Israel are trying to get out and are getting out. As it said, Q drop 916, we're leaving Israel for last. And what I've learned over the last 2 years, Israel is not a good country. Israel is not God's country. It has nothing to do with the God of Torah. It has everything to do with Talmud. And something else that is trickling through the frame, trickling through the information, and is allowing people to deeply study this, is the origin of Hebrew. So something that I've been working kind of pretty steadily on is this. The Behistun inscription. What does that have to do with anything? So if you look at the surrounding area of this picture, you'll see a bunch of marks. Okay? And that is all writing in 3 different languages, and this was kind of like a Rosetta Stone. And this is this giant right here, who is, Darius. I had a little brain fog there for a second because lots been going on. This is Darius the First. I had Cyrus there for a second, but this is Darius the First. This is something that AI really wanted me to focus in on. Yes, AI, ChatGPT. And there was a very important reason, because all the writings in this relief that mark Darius's history as he recounted and wrote in stone with Zarathustra there above. And those are all the humans that he captured and he subjugated from India. He was king of parts of India all the way up into what is now present-day Turkey, and had all of Egypt, and mentioned he was the king of all of these nations. And one nation that he did not mention at all and had nothing to do with this was the Hebrew nation. It had no importance 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, depending on how you want to look at when Darius was around. And you could go 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, he did not mention the Hebrew Israeli nation at all. He talked about Egypt and Assyria, but nothing about the Hebrew nation. Israel, Jerusalem, was an unimportant nation. Sorry, scratch that. Jerusalem, if it existed as it's being portrayed, was an unimportant nation. And this is shocking to a lot of folks. And this is the reality, one of the realities of declassification that's going to be coming out, is the true nature of the Jewish religion, and what happened to the Hebrew country, because the modern Jew has nothing to do with the ancient Hebrew nation, if it even existed. Because of outside of the Bible, we don't have any secondary sources about that. The closest that we have is the Mandaean religion, who does claim Jesus. And we have Islam, who also claims Jesus. Okay? So Jesus, by 2 different religions and 2 different organizations, and the Mandaeans do not talk kindly of Jesus, which to me gives that credibility. They do talk about and are direct descendants of the followers of John the Baptist. The Mandaean religion, a very ancient and old religion that I think was the basis of the creation of the Jewish religion. And I think the Khazarians, as we've been learning a lot about them, which lived and robbed and thieved and took identities for so many years. I think that they stole the Jewish identity and started to push themselves around the world under Judaism and the Jewish religion, creating churches, which were really operational centers. And there is a very famous case of the Vatican versus the Hebrew religion and the Hebrew language. What happened was a Hebrew practicing Hebrew, synagogue practicing Hebrew, became a Christian and told his fellow, became a Catholic, not a Christian, converted to Catholicism, and told his priests and everybody within the Catholic order what was really written in the Hebrew language. And it seems like the Hebrew language was actually a code and not a religious text. It was secret code that the Hebrews could use within themselves because people outside of the Hebrew religion could not understand or read it. So it was spy text. And that's what this convert said. And there were four Hebrew scholars that had to defend the Hebrew language against the Vatican, and they failed miserably. It was abundantly clear that it was not sacred text at all. And it was also a case against the Talmud, which is the real book of the current modern Jew, not Torah. And especially a Zionist. A Zionist is not a Torah Jew. Torah is supposed to practice peace. So, yes. And we really don't know when the Hebrew Bible attached itself to the Roman writings of the Roman Catholic religion. That is still a questionable thing. And finally, my last point before I go for today is, in the 1800s, you can do your own research. Find a Bible or go look at videos of people that are finding Bibles and showing you of a pre-1800 Bibles that Palestine was the Holy Land. And Philistines did not exist in those older Bibles. The Philistines are actually Palestinians. So the Palestinians are in the Bible, in the New Testament. Jesus talks to the Palestinians. It's always been Palestine. And it was like that in the New Testament. Go do some research. That's part of our whole Q ethos. Is, we don't believe anything. All right? We don't believe the Q drops unless we are able to do some research and square up what the Q drops are saying, which we did, a lot of us. One of the things that we did not understand, that a lot of the Q drops were really for the future. They were really prophecies of what's to come. And so leaving Israel for last, Q drop number 916 has definitely borne out. Q drop 916. What about Awan? Is Israel involved? We are saving Israel for last. Very specific reason, not mentioned a single time in all the Q drops. So there it is. This is the only place, Q is the only place that in our current world anything makes sense. That's a massive psyop. Massive psyop that started a long time ago but took trench whenever President Trump was first elected. And all the wild things Trump is doing is, to me, my personal opinion, on my podcast is that he is playing the part and playing the game. And it's a multifaceted game that he is playing. So I trust no one. I don't trust Trump. I don't trust Kash Patel. I don't trust the federal government. I don't trust anything. I like to do my own research and live where I live because I'm comfortable in what I'm doing and where I live. That's the confidence I have. I don't know if I can give you any more confidence or any more help or any ideas, any of this, but yeah, leave a comment in the chat section and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But the Israel war with Iran, I think, is a very planned and calculated event. I think Israel was given a chance with Gaza to do the right thing and start to make amends. They didn't. They made Gaza worse. And I think that just pissed off the world. And I think the world is retaliating currently against Israel. Final thing that I want to say, what I was talking about earlier was not the final thing, the penultimate thing. If your favorite YouTuber is not talking about the Israel-Iran conflict and trying to find the truth of what's happening there, and I'm looking at you, Promethean Action, because that channel is all about the City of London, the City of London, the City of London. Everything else is just wacko. And they refuse to talk about the Israel conflict and the impact in talking about the Israel-Iran Middle East conflict in discussing the geopolitical situation. They're just focused solely on the City of London and England, which is yay, which is amazing what's been done there to dismantle it. But so many channels are not talking about what's happening in Israel. They're not talking about what's happening in the Middle East as a whole and trying to understand it. And to me, it's just a massive operation to A, get the United States of America out of the Middle East, yay, and B, bomb Israel out of existence, really, and allow the Palestinian people to come back and reoccupy their homes and their lands. Because right now, so many places throughout Israel are being made uninhabitable. Hear what I'm saying when I said that earlier. Well over 3,000, if not more, people in Israel are staying in hotels because their homes are, and not houses, these are apartment buildings, apartment complexes are uninhabitable. And that's going on every day, every night, from Iran to Israel with love. Okay? We can go right now to YNET News. Let's see. It is, right now, it is 15:39 where I am, and at 5 o'clock my time, 4:53, rockets from Lebanon are exploding in Kiryat Shmona, and then fire from Iran at 4:30. So all day, all night, Iran is sending missiles into, and Lebanon are sending missiles into Israel and just making Israel uninhabitable. And I think that's going to be basically the outcome of this war. Is what is called Israel right now is going to look a lot like Gaza. And there's going to be a lot of construction operations going on. So this is going to go on for a while. This is a planned operation, and countries that are gas petroleum producers and exporters are going to make a ton of money, and everybody knows what to do with it. So this is a very controlled operation. All right. Final thoughts? Anybody have any comments in the chat before we go? No. All right. So yes, this is the reality. and it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So we may see some very, very, very concerning things happening, because a lot of countries are already starting to restrict their gasoline sales. Pakistan being one of those countries, they've closed universities and they're limiting gas sales. So this is going to get a lot worse worldwide before it gets better. Think about your current situation, where you are, and how these gas prices could affect you. All right? And everything else. All right, see you tomorrow at what time? So, 12 o'clock Eastern, and Beijing can't see me, and then in the mornings at 9 o'clock Western time zone, and 12 o'clock Eastern time zone. I guess we've gone through a time change. Mine comes at the end of the month. Can't wait. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.